Uh, Podcast, vlog. What's going on, guys? Week 1 is in the books. Just finished my final training day for the week. Lower body hypertrophy session with a bit of a hamstring focus. And today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the diet setup that we have planned for now that Alberto has programmed for me for this week and the coming weeks. Things are going pretty well. Lost some weight. We're pushing the fat loss pretty hard for now. Been tracking calories and macros. Obviously been doing reasonably well with that. I have been weighing about 90% of my food intake. There's been the odd few foods that I haven't weighed, but I've eyeballed, and being a little bit of a macro veteran, I'm sure I was pretty close to what I needed to hit and reaching my target. So all things are going well. Started to feel a little bit hungry towards the end of the week. Being really hot in Melbourne, the heat definitely caused me to feel a little bit funky. And just balancing, a lot of work and a busy schedule this week. That little drop in energy took me a few days to get used to, and then, the fatigue started to just set in from everything, not just the diet towards the end of the week. But I digress. Now let's talk about the diet.
All right, guys, so this is the diet setup that Alberto has planned for me thus far, and if we look over here, these are my current macros as of week 1. 50 grams of fat, 235 grams of carbs, 205 grams of protein, and 2,210 calories. And obviously we've got some ranges there. So 5 low days, and this week we took those Monday through Friday with 2 high days where we're adding in 165 grams of carbs and obviously lowering the protein a little bit, 2,870 calories. And again, these are just ranges. But yeah, for the most part, hit those pretty well during the week. If we run through the spreadsheet from left to right, been getting 3.6 liters of water at least a day. Plenty of diet sodas this week. Obviously, we're going to curb the appetite a little bit. It's quite a big reduction, and I started to feel that towards the end of the week, like I said earlier. And obviously the fiber, really important, and definitely getting in those 2 to 3 serves of veggies. So things are pretty straightforward for now. As you can see, all the notes here for nutrient timing, and obviously we've got those 2 high carb days at maintenance, those refeeds, and I'm very much enjoying those. A lot of energy, and it was great timing considering I had a workshop yesterday to have a big bolus of carbs before we went into that presentation. So doing my best to prioritize the pre-workout and post-workout nutrition now. Obviously when we're training in hypercaloric conditions, so at an energy surplus, we don't need to pay attention to these kind of things too much, as our energy is pretty constant. We're carrying a little bit more body fat, but as we start to diet, and the longer we diet, we definitely need to pay attention to the food that we're eating before training, so we have sufficient energy to put in the work and obviously maintain all those off-season gains. So definitely prioritizing this more so now than ever. I got away with quite a lot in this regard during the off-season. I never really had a pre-workout or post-workout meal. It was very much train when I can, eat where I can, but now I've been planning things a lot more diligently, and it's definitely paid off this week. Training, like you guys would have seen in the prelude to the contest prep, I'm taking care of the training. So at this stage we have a volume maintenance week for week 1, and obviously we're starting to increase the volume over the next few weeks. Yeah, prioritizing the chest and the hamstrings this cycle. Cardio was in the mix this week, so that was a little bit of a curveball from Berta. I wasn't expecting the cardio, but we have to come out of the gates fast. So a lot of people think that their contest prep, that they have to push harder and pick up the rate of loss towards the end of the prep, but that's when you're most fragile, and the rate of loss is going to be a lot less during the end of a contest prep, purely because you have less fat to liberate, and a bigger deficit, more aggressive and assertive reductions in calories when you're already really lean could potentially lead to muscle loss and burnout. So the way that we're running things now, and I haven't spoken to Berto about this, but I know through what I've learned from the guys at 3DMJ as well as my own research, is that the start of the prep, when you've got the most fat and you're feeling the best, is when you should be pushing the fat loss the hardest. So the cardio's in the mix just to increase that energy out side of the equation. Nothing too ridiculous, 2 to 3 sessions a week, aiming for 450 to 300 calories a session, and we're just looking for that total weekly calorie burn. And that was a focus for this week, because I honestly didn't manage to get 45 minutes of walking in, except just once. We'll run through that shortly, but instead I just focused on ticking the box and making sure that I got all the cardio in. No hit. And supplements over here, as you can see, creatine, multivitamin, fish oils, caffeine, vitamin D, beta-alanine, citrulline malate. There's some general recommendations from Berto, but at the moment I'm not taking any of those supplements. I'm not one to take supplements, just that caffeine. I'm definitely hitting the caffeine hard, and with the hours that I work, there's a lot of caffeine that's consumed throughout the day to make sure that the brain's working as it needs to be. Much of it's a placebo, I'm sure, because I've built up quite a tolerance, but at the end of the day, I'm getting the caffeine in. The rest I'll start to prioritize, when I need to. But that's that. Not too much of a concern right now. And the prep start date was obviously the 14th of Jan. We've got a diet break at the end of March, so that'll be interesting. I'll keep you guys posted. It could come earlier. It could come later. Berto actually sent me a video outlining that if I need to take it earlier due to my work and life situation, we can take it earlier. But I'm pretty confident that we'll stick to the plan. I don't want my outside factors and priorities to influence the prep too much. I want to be a soldier, and I want to make sure that we get things done, and make the plan work, which is obviously going to mean that I have to work for the plan, and then when the time comes, we'll make the plan work for me. But we'll run through my week so far, and you can see here on Monday I was weighing 83.8, so I'd already lost about 1.5 kg the week before, and I did a pretty good job in hitting my targets that day. Upper strength, Nick, that means nil, no cardio on the Monday. And then we started to see some pretty consistent drops, losing 1 kilo in the week. And it was all smooth sailing. As you can see on the far right, my cardio was broken up over 2 sessions, and I will be getting my cardio in tonight down here after my leg session. But something to note was that I misread my calories and just had an absolute brain fart on the Tuesday, overate my fat stupidly by 20 grams, so I brought it back down the next day just to compensate, but that was just a silly mistake on my end. No issues in terms of hunger or anything like that, just a silly little mistake. And some notes over here, you can see that I adjusted my intake due to misreading my targets, and I banked a few calories on the Thursday, because I know that on the Saturday I was going to the Australian Open. So I cooked up a pre-packaged pizza, took that along with me to the tennis, and I had a glass of wine, measured that out, made it work, and just cut out a few calories and carbohydrates to make that fit. But guys, things are all moving in the right direction. We're off to a flying start this week, and I'm looking forward to the week ahead, because I'm already starting to notice changes in how I look. The body fat is starting to come down. Obviously, big drops in water, weight, and gut mass over the last couple of weeks. That's expected, but things are trending nicely. I'm looking a lot different, just less bloated in general, and starting to tighten up, and that's always really motivating. I think that's something that people often forget, is that a faster rate of loss can be quite motivating. And at the start of prep, when it is the time to push things harder, it can really set the tone for things moving forward. And to that end, when we're coming out of the gates fast, it allows us to control things better, because we're not rushing to the stage. And the analogy that I use to explain this to my clients is that we're running a race, and we're at the front. And when you're at the front, you can pull things back when you need to. You can, take a glance over your shoulder to see how much further you can push. And all these kind of things. It allows you to be poised and not be forced to make hasty decisions because you're coming in last and you've got to rush to the end. So that's where we're at with the diet, guys. Really consistent week ahead for me in terms of my work schedules. So I'm looking forward to making sure that that consistency and structure from work carries over to the diet and the training, which I think is going to be really important moving forward and something that I'll be focusing on. But otherwise, all is good. Week 2, commence.